Welcome. I'm Barrie-Louise Switzen, and my show is The Women's Connection. The Women's Connection is a program about women and challenges and obstacles that they've had in their lives, but more important, it's what they've done with the challenge. Before I introduce our guest, I'd like to ask you a question. Do the holidays make you depressed, and single functions want to make you ill? And what about Valentine's Day? Do you find you just want to hibernate? Our guest today is a woman who has been on both sides of the fence, single, married, and single again. Today we're going to learn how she found a niche and built a thriving business because she was single again. Let us welcome Glaydis Dobelle. Welcome.
It's good to be here, Barrie.
Thank you for joining us. Now you found a niche and you developed a unique business here in New York. What is it?
It's called Glad Tidings, and I am a social life coach. It's about coaching single people.
Now, how would you coach single people in New York? I mean,
well, it's for single men and women. I always say that because as a woman, people assume that I just work with women. People of all ages, broad spectrum, 18 to 80. So it's a very wide range of people that are single. Single, never married, or single, separated, divorced, or widowed.
Or widowed. Do you get many at the 80 spectrum, or do you get them more in the middle, or what's your average?
It's a very interesting mix of people, mix of ages.
Oh. Now, what prompted you to get into this business?
Well, I was counseling single people, and I was married, and when I decided to leave the marriage, I thought, no problem, I will be out there and be single, and I know how to do that. And I realized it wasn't that easy for me.
But you weren't always doing this. You were doing something else before that?
Right. I was working with a project called New York for New Yorkers, as the psychology of New York, having people fall in love with New York through different projects that we worked on.
Now, how did you even come up with that idea?
Well, I am a native New Yorker, but I had lived away in Boston and in San Francisco for many years. And when I moved back to New York, I realized that there was a need for a project to get people reacquainted with the city, and I started to develop that concept.
Now, how did you wind up developing that concept? I know you moved back, but...
When I got back to New York, I realized that it had changed. It was a city that was just very, very different, and I really wanted somebody to sort of take me around and show me New York, and there really wasn't a service like that. And so because of the need, I realized there was a niche for that service and started the New York for New Yorkers concept.
Then, you developed that business with Glad Tidings out of that, and then you got divorced?
Yes, I got divorced, and it was a kind of a scariness to get out there after being married for so many years, and I realized that there was a need for people to have a coach.
I think it's great that you took a niche and developed a business for it. But what do you do with, okay, let's say you're interviewing me for a counseling coaching session. What kind of questions would you ask?
I start with, first of all, what are your interests? What do you like to do? Because it's really about sending a single person to places that are appropriate for them. And if you have interests, then we send you to the places that are related to your interest.
Now, this is all this gleaned from all the information that you've compiled through the years and stuff?
Right. What I did was, when I first came to New York, what I did was I sort of walked the streets and avenues and put together the information about what is out in New York, what is here, and I became kind of a
street walker.
So yes, kind of an information central. People call me misinformation, and it's through that information that I'm able to disseminate now to my clients.
Now, each session is different, or is it similar, and you just ask them questions and you give them information?
It's a good question. Every session is individualized. Every session is different. All the work with the clients it's individualized for them and customized for each person. Everybody brings different issues to the problem.
So what exactly do you do? Okay, you've asked me all these questions, and then what do you do after that?
It's really giving you a pathway. I develop what I call a MAP, a mate action plan.
Oh, that's neat. Almost like a business plan?
A business plan. A mate action plan is really to get you focused on how can you get out there again, where to go, and some of it is attitude adjustment.
Do many people have an attitude problem, or I know single people are a unique breed in New York versus any place else in the country. But what else do you do? I mean, you help them coach on this attitude problem, or?
Right. It's a lot of it is really readiness. In other words, people may just come to me with a concept of, I don't know if I'm really ready to do this yet, and we really just make sure that they have a good attitude about being ready to go out there again.
How do you know when they're ready or they're not ready?
They tell me, in a sense. If somebody calls and says, I got divorced yesterday and I'd like to come to see you tomorrow, I don't encourage. I really wait till they're really ready to get out there again.
Now, how do you get your clients?
It's mostly word of mouth. People are pleased with the service, and they encourage their daughters or their sisters or their sons to come to the service, and word of mouth build up.
And now, do you find you have more women, or do you have more men that come?
It's interesting. I actually have. It's an interesting mix. The women tend to think about it more before they book in. They will call and ask a lot of questions, and I think they're very savvy shoppers. They really ask a lot of questions, whereas the men will call and just book in. I mean, they will just call and say, I heard about your service, I heard it's terrific, and how about tomorrow, or how about Tuesday at 6 o'clock?
Almost like a business deal.
Absolutely. It's making a business appointment. They really look at it as getting out there again, and just, I'm ready to do that quickly. Women think about it more.
And women think about it? Okay, now after you've done the map, you made action plan, who follows through the fastest or has the most success?
I find that the women do. Women are very conscientious about homework and following through. I do something called the opposite of homework. Homework is at home and it's work. I do encourage them to do outplay, which are activities outside and on their own. And women take notes and they do their outplay. But the men are more casual about it. They don't often come in with a pen and paper ready to take notes, and they just more casual about it.
More casual? If they find somebody that it's okay, and if they don't, women look at it as a real...
It's a project. I mean, it really, and what I try to encourage my clients to do is really look at it as a project, to look at it as, take it serious, to really focus.
Now, okay, if you're out there, and do you have certain questions you ask people as you meet, or do you have a formula that you put together, say, okay, when you're at this situation, here, ask this kind of a question, or if you meet this type of a person, because you're reformatting and focusing people on what they're doing.
Yes, what I do is I have, I call the action that I give them is called cheer, steer, and clear.
Please explain.
First of all, I act as a cheerleader for them, and I really cheer them on to really give them a lot of encouragement, a lot of empowerment. And then after I cheer them on and get them ready to go out there, I steer them in the direction that, again, to use the word appropriate, it's appropriate for them.
Everybody's different,
to really have it work for them. And then in terms of clearing, I, in a sense, clear a pathway for them. I give them a lot of personal points, a lot of personal empowerments to just say, okay, now we've gotten you ready to go out there and you now know where to go, but how do you do that? How do you get out there and make it work for you?
Okay, let me ask you, how do you get out there? I mean, if you've been newly divorced, it's been, let's say, 6 months, a year, or whatever, and you feel that, okay, I'm going to go make the plunge and see if I can find somebody. What do you say to somebody?
It's a matter of really looking at what you bring to the table. We start, as I started to say, we start with their interests. What are you interested in? And let's find places for you to do that. What interests do you have that you've been thinking about trying? What activities have you been thinking about trying that you haven't tried yet? So we take that. For example, if somebody is interested in learning how to play chess, then I will steer them in the direction of how do you do that? How do you find the chess places, the chess centers, the chess clubs, and have it work for you?
It sounds almost like you could do it for some married couples too, the newly married, or not so newly married, but we know couples where they get stagnant in their relationship and everybody's saying, oh, they don't love me anymore, you know, and it's the romance is taken out. Almost sounds like you could do something like that too with them. Come in and have a
a social life.
Social, right.
I guess I could, but I really stay very focused with single people, and for me, it's very gratifying doing this work because it's very results oriented.
Well,
people get very, very. It's wonderful, and I get the call that says, "It worked. Thank you." It worked.
So, how many weddings do you go to? A lot of weddings.
I go to a lot of weddings. It's really, and it's fun because very often the couples will call me and tell me that they're getting married, and they'll say, "Well, now listen, you don't have to bring us a present because
that's nice.
you already gave us the present," and that's really nice.
Now, let me just. What's the shortest time span that somebody has met their mate?
Well, the average runs from 6 weeks to about 6 months. That is really the average. That is if somebody's really focused and ready to do the homework, to do the outplay, and really give time to it. In psychology, we have a concept called the triangle of life.
And what's that consist of?
And that's the triangle are the three push-pulls of your life. At the top of the triangle is your work life, and that is your work life gives your life the structure and the meaning of your day. The second part of the triangle is your home life, your environment where you live, your space. And the third part of the triangle, is your social life. And when people come to me, they are ready to focus on their social life, but if they have other issues that are not working for them, such as work problems or home problems, we really have to sort through that to really give them the time to focus.
Let me just ask you this. I always say people have two personalities, a work personality and a social personality. Is there a third personality, or is it, you're saying a home personality, maybe, is there three? I
find that people do put on a different personality when they go out there in terms of social life, and what we try to do is together get them to just feel good about themselves. I always say that you should feel good about yourself when you're throwing out the garbage down your hallway as you do when you walk into a party, because you should just feel good about yourself and feel confident. And along with the confidence comes the concept of being able to, being open, being ready to meet somebody. If you have the mindset of, well, tonight I'm going to go out and meet somebody, it usually doesn't happen. It's more being more open every day, all the time, within the routine of your day or the routine of your week.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you like, what do you think of single functions? Or the personals?
Well, what I do is I sort of there are 3 areas of single life that I isolate in a sense. The 3 areas are single parties, singles bars, and the personal ads. People often ask me, well, should we do it? Should I not do this? What I say is, do everything that you can to keep yourself out there, to keep yourself out with people, because really the definition of social is people, and life is alive. So all of those activities put you in touch with people. Somebody said recently that going on a date is like a long interview. It's an evening long interview. But that's okay. Go on these dates. I call them, it's sort of the difference between dating and mating, to go on these dates. And through running the personal ad or going to a singles party or going to a singles bar, you will meet people if you're open for it, and kind of keep your dating skills up and running, which is really important. The concept of staying home and waiting for the person just isn't a reality.
What exactly, give us one idea of what exactly is a dating skill? I mean,
okay, a dating skill is being a good conversationalist. I coach my clients on how to read the paper, what to read, how to read it so that you will be a good conversationalist, how to listen to the radio, how to listen to the television news, how to glean from that conversational skills. People will just think, well, I know how to talk. I talk all day at the office. But there's a skill in actually getting out there again, especially people who come from long-term relationships, people that are coming out of either marriages or long-term relationships that are 4 years or more. It's very difficult, or I should say even relationships that are 4 months long. It's very hard getting out there again when you feel that you have to start all over again.
I remember I was fixing somebody up and they said, well, what do I talk about?
Right.
I said, don't worry about it. Just, pick a subject, any subject, and you'll be off and running, because it is difficult. It
is not easy, and that's why it works, because we focus on, we really pay a lot of attention, give a lot of attention to how do you isolate all the components of going on a date again and really make it all work for you.
Now, how long is a session, or do you have people come for a series of sessions, or how do you work on that?
Well, it's very unique in that I see people only once.
Only once?
Only once.
That's unique.
It's very unique, and the reason, and it really works, and the reason it works is because everybody who comes to the service these are people with real day jobs, and they're really busy people, and everyone's on overload. And people hesitate to come into a program that might be once a week or twice a week or for 6 weeks or 6 months.
Almost going back, like going back to school.
Going back to school or going to just an intensive session. And very often these people don't need an intensive. They just need one long talk, one good session. And we do that session and then give them some homework, outplay, some follow-up assignments.
That's the map?
That's the map. And then they have the ability to, they have what I call an open line. I welcome them to call me and keep me updated on how it's going. But we actually only meet once. Which is really unique.
Yes, it is.
And it's right because it's not traditional therapy, and I certainly think, I know that traditional therapy has its role, has its place, and there's a need for it. But this is different. This is kind of a jump start, like a booster shot for them to get out there again. I use the expression of a coach, like a social life coach, as a football coach would give the player
the rah-rah, the cheering.
And the player will come to the coach when he feels that he's not really winning the game, and the coach will give him new updates on skills and some new techniques that he might try, and that's what I basically do.
And how often do people usually call you for follow-up?
I suggest that they call me around every 10 days or so, but what happens is they're so busy doing their homework and their outplay and getting their dating skills up and running that they keep in touch. I really encourage them to do that because it's important for me to know that it is working for them.
Now, what's the shortest turnaround time?
The turnaround time. Well, actually, it's a lovely story about a couple that met, and after 12 days,
12 days?
They had 7 dates in 12 days.
Is this love at first sight or something like this?
This was a real romance. This was a real romance. This was a couple. She was a widow. She had been widowed for about a year, and he was a widower, and he had been widower for about a year. And it turns out that I met them within the same week, and I just instantly knew that they would like each other. And
matchmaker on top.
Well, I do matchmaking because that's sort of, I call that part gratis by Glaydis. That's the part that I really enjoy doing. It really gives me an extra pleasure to put two people who are really two lovely people together.
What other kind of stories do you have about, you said being open and you never know who you're going to meet, when and where?
Absolutely. I think the story about the myth about that you really have to keep getting out there because no one's going to come knocking on your door.
Right.
There actually was a story of young woman who had been a client, and I encouraged her to be very open, to be ready to not edit. That's the word. To really the concept of not editing every man, looking at every man as a perfect mate. Just be open to meet new men as friends. And one Saturday afternoon, she was home, and as she said, schlumpy at home, and there was a knock on the door. Actually, the bell rang, and she looked through the little New York City porthole, keyhole door, the door port, and saw a very nice-looking young man, and he asked, "Excuse me, I'm looking for Norman. Do you know where Norman is?" And she assessed that he was a friend of Norman's. Norman was a next-door neighbor. She was a friend of Norman's, and Norman was expecting him, but Norman wasn't there. And he said, he asked, "May I come in, please, and call Norman to see if he's okay? I'm concerned about him." And she said to me, "I waited about a millisecond and made a decision, and I looked at him and I thought if he was a friend of Norman's, he would be okay." And I let him in, and he came in and he used the phone and called Norman, and it turned out that Norman had just run down to get a newspaper, and they just missed each other.
Oh, what timing? Timing
was incredible, and he went into Norman and said, "Who's your next door neighbor?" "She's terrific." And Norman made the introduction, and they eventually met and got married. It's a really wonderful story. So
that's great.
So somebody did come knocking on her door, but it doesn't happen that often. It's a very unusual one out of a million. One out of, I would say, more than a million.
How many single people are there let's say, just in the island of Manhattan?
The statistics are really incredible. There are 800,000 single people on the island of Manhattan.
From all different ages, or just a certain...
18 and up.
18 and up. Wow.
Those are the figures from the 1992 census figures.
Now, what about in America? How many single people?
1990.
1990? About how many people would you say?
In America, there are 80 million. The census figure is 80 million single people.
80 million.
So there's somebody out there for everybody.
It's just a matter
of to be in the right place in the right time. No, it's not. It's really just a matter of being open and ready.
I think it's just not being so preoccupied and have so much garbage going on or something. Now, are you dating somebody right now?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I met somebody by heeding my own advice, listening to my own advice. I was very open to, it was actually through a wrong number. It was a wrong phone number. It was a wrong number.
I don't get those kind of good ones. I get the obnoxious wrong numbers.
Well, it was a wrong number, but I was also very careful, and we ended up, it was a wrong number, and we ended up speaking for an hour, so I really got to know him on the phone, and...
I bet he was surprised.
He was very surprised. He was very surprised. But he was open for it, too, so I think he was divorced and ready to allow that to happen.
Well, that's even better.
Oh.
Now, okay, if I came to you or somebody and we went through this whole map, where would you say, let's go to find a mate? I mean, whether I was a man or a woman, I mean, is there one particular place in the city? I mean, okay, you've got all my information, you've got all this stuff. What would you say?
It's a good point, Barry. It's not about looking for a mate. It's about really enjoying what you do, meeting somebody in a setting that's comfortable for you. It's just sort of the obvious of go someplace that you enjoy, and you will meet somebody who also enjoys that activity. I suggest to clients to volunteer, because if you sign up to volunteer for a charity, you will probably meet somebody that has a good heart, and that's a nice start. Just commonality of interest.
So would you recommend going to bars, or I know well, we already talked about the personals and the single functions, but bars, yes, only in that if you are very clear about your expectations. For example, I suggest to women to go to sports bars if there's a hot Knicks game or a Rangers game that evening, because it's fun to see the Knicks and it's fun to see it on the huge sports bar screen. But go with the expectation that it will be fun. Don't go with the expectation of looking for somebody, because then you never meet.
It's white knuckles. You just give out the wrong vibes. But go someplace that's fun for you.
What other stories you want to share with us?
Oh, when I mentioned chess before, it's just a great story of a young lady who came to me, and she's an accountant and a very, very smart, but very plain at her own description of herself. She said, I'm very plain and I want to meet somebody who is very smart and somebody who is, and she used the word, she said, somebody who's kind of an MIT nerd. And she did it in quotes, which is sort of fun. And I thought for a moment, I thought, well, okay, tomorrow night I want you to go to the chess club. And she said to me, but I don't play chess. I said, it's okay, trust me. I want you to go to the chess club, and I want you to, I taught her how to approach a room. In the case of a chess club, for example, the people will probably be playing chess with their heads down, and walk in, look around, and pick out somebody that you think might be fun for you to teach you how to play chess. And she did, and she called me that. One of the rules is to not call me until 10 days till you have practiced and done some of your assignments. But she called me that evening on my machine at the office and said, I know I'm breaking the rules, I'm calling you. I just saw you yesterday, but I want to tell you, thank you.
Oh?
You changed my life. I was the most popular woman at the chess club. I was the only woman at the chess club. And I did what you suggested, and I met a lovely man who helped me. He was very advanced in chess, but he helped me really learn the basics, and we're going out tomorrow night.
Oh, so he was single.
He was single. Oh, yes, he was single. And they actually did end up getting married. So it's a great story. So that was really my first night out of the after the session success.
That is terrific. What other kind of stories do you have, or do you have any people who kind of gave up and didn't pursue it?
Well, sometimes people will come through the program, or we'll have our session, and then I don't hear from them, and I always, you know,
do you follow up?
I worry. Well, I don't. I found that I don't call them because it's too, mother is looking at you or big sister is checking in on you. I wait for them to call me, and they eventually do, and sometimes they will have met somebody and then it didn't work out, and so they call again. So there's a lot of follow-up on their own, but I really try to keep them focused on the concept that you really never know when you're going to run into someone from your future.
That's always when you have a bad hair day.
Yes, right. Well, that's a cute comment, because one of the concepts that I teach people is to wear something that somebody will comment on, because it gives people permission to say hello to you. And there's a cap that has bad hair day on it, and I had a woman client who just literally said, she said, I can't go out when it rains. And I said, that's absurd to say that you can't go out when it's. Get yourself a bad hair day hat. And she did, and she looks adorable in hats. You know, some people have hat faces. And right. She's just adorable, and she was out in the rain and met somebody who commented on her and the hat, and it got them talking.
Maybe I should go buy some hats and say bad hair day. I'm always having that.
Or say hello to me or talk to me. Or, It's really about wearing something, and I coach men on this too. For men, I coach them on wearing a wonderful tie, a tie that a woman will feel comfortable commenting on.
That's
nothing
not sexist.
Silly.
That's not sexist, or
well, nothing. I mean, nothing that will sort of blink and blinking neon lights, but something that is a tie that is fun or clever, or if you like jazz, get a tie that has mini saxophones on it, or something that will evoke a conversation, because there is a concept about people really want to meet. They want to talk to each other. They want to say hello, but it's difficult to just say hello. My name is Harry. So if Harry's wearing a gray tie, he gives Harriet a chance to say hello.
Well, I remember one time I was going through Bloomingdale's and I said hello to somebody, and I just kept going on, and they stopped, waited for me to turn around and talk to them, and I wasn't really into that.
Why not?
I had a lot of things on my mind, and it was like I wanted to accomplish so many things in like a space of an hour. So then I just took off and went to the movies, and he was standing in front of me, and he looked at me, and I didn't remember him. And after the movies, I remember I said something very intellectual, because I saw him again. I said, well, what'd you think of the movie?
Good opening. It works every time.
So we went out, and
you did.
It didn't develop.
But that's okay. It's about, I call it keeping the dating skills oiled.
Oh.
And that's not a sexual comment. It's keeping it all lubed. In other words, keeping it moving.
Keeping it moving?
Keep it out. I also call it the pantyhose syndrome. I tell women that after work, when you have your pantyhose on, don't go home. You're out there.
Just go.
Right. Always do one thing for your social life in a day.
Oh, that's a good thought.
So in other words, don't go don't go straight home. On Valentine's Day, for example, I coach them to, that's the one night you shouldn't stay home. That's the one night you should get out. For example, that's an evening where if men are married, they're out with their wives. If men are in relationships, they're out with their girlfriends. And they just, so certain nights to really get out there.
Well, great.
On a Saturday night.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Glaydis. We're delighted to have you. Glaydis Dobelle, Glad Tidings. Did you ever think of having a map or made action plan? Thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you again.